Skier torn apart. On January 18, 1991, Austrian skier Gernot Reinstadler began a training run on the Lauberhorn course in Wengen, Switzerland. The 20-year-old was preparing for one of the most dangerous downhill races in alpine skiing. The course was known for its extreme speeds and unforgiving terrain. That morning, conditions were fast. The snow was packed hard and visibility was clear. Reinstadler pushed off and accelerated down the mountain. He navigated the steep sections with precision, his skis carving through turns at high speed. As he approached the final obstacle, a series of jumps known as the S section, he was traveling even faster. The jumps required perfect balance and control. Any mistake at that speed could be disastrous. Just before the safety nets, Reinstadler lost control. Observers reported his weight appeared too far forward as he jumped too long into the turn. He crashed into the mesh barrier at full speed. One of his ski tips snagged in the netting. The ski became an anchor. His body continued forward, but the ski held firm. The force caused catastrophic pelvic and leg injuries. His right leg was almost completely torn off. Major blood vessels were severed instantly. A long trail of bright red blood streaked across the white snow behind him. Medical personnel rushed to the scene as he lay semi-conscious on the snow. The internal injuries were severe. Blood continued to pool beneath him as they worked frantically to stabilize his condition. He was transported by helicopter to a hospital in Interlaken, but the massive blood loss had already taken its toll. Doctors performed emergency surgery and administered multiple blood transfusions throughout the evening. The vascular damage was too extensive. Early the next morning, on January 19, 1991, Gernot Reinstadler was gone. He was 20 years old. Dead jockey wins race. On June 4, 1923, Belmont Park Racetrack in New York hosted a steeplechase event that would enter history for the most unusual reason imaginable. Among the riders was Frank Hayes, a 22-year-old stableman who worked at the track. Hayes had spent years caring for horses but had minimal experience as a jockey. He had ridden in one prior race at Havre de Grace without success, making this only his second professional race. He was assigned to ride a horse named Sweet Kiss, a long shot with 20-1 odds. Few people expected the pair to finish anywhere near the front. Hayes had been forced to undergo extreme weight loss to meet racing requirements, dropping from 142 pounds to 130 pounds in the days before the race. In the final 24 hours, he lost nearly 10 pounds through intense exercise, denying himself water and food. The race began and Hayes guided Sweet Kiss over the jumps and around the course. The horse ran steadily, keeping pace with more experienced competitors. Toward the end of the race, Hayes suffered a massive heart attack. His body went limp. He slumped forward over the horse's neck. Observers later reported seeing him weakly tugging at the bridle as he struggled. Some spectators thought he was whispering to the horse. Somehow, his lifeless body did not fall from the saddle. Sweet Kiss continued running. The horse navigated the remaining jumps and turns with Hayes draped across his neck. Sweet Kiss pushed forward and crossed the finish line in first place, winning by a head. The horse cantered an additional 100 yards past the finish line before coming to a stop. Hayes slipped slowly over his mount's side, fell face downward, and lay still. The owner approached. Track physician Dr. John A. Voorhees rushed to the scene and examined Hayes. He had no pulse. He was already gone. Frank Hayes had won his first and only race as a jockey while dead. The extreme weight loss and excitement of the race likely contributed to the fatal heart attack. His body had simply stayed in position through momentum and the way he had fallen forward. Sweet Kiss never raced again after that day. Hayes remains the only jockey in history to win a race after dying. Lion dies on field. On October 24, 1971, the Detroit Lions faced the Chicago Bears in front of 54,418 fans. Chuck Hughes was a wide receiver for the Lions, a 28-year-old player who had spent most of the game on the sideline. Late in the fourth quarter, he was sent onto the field as an injury replacement for Larry Walton. Hughes made a 32-yard catch from quarterback Greg Landry for a first down at the Bears' 37-yard line. It was his first catch of the season. 3 plays later, Landry threw a pass intended for tight end Charlie Sanders near the end zone, but the ball slipped through Sanders' fingers. Hughes had run his route as a decoy on this play. He began jogging back toward the huddle. Suddenly, he grabbed his chest. He dropped face first onto the turf at the 25-yard line. His body hit the ground hard. He did not try to break his fall. At first, some observers thought he might be faking an injury to stop the clock. It was a common tactic in football. Then Dick Butkus, a linebacker for the opposing Bears, saw Hughes begin to convulse. Butkus immediately waved his arms frantically, signaling for the medical staff. The urgency in his gestures made everyone realize this was not a trick. Team doctors sprinted onto the field. Lions team physicians Richard Thompson and Edwin Guise, trainer Kent Falb, assistant trainer Gary Tuthill, along with physicians from both teams and a doctor attending the game rushed to Hughes. They began performing CPR right there on the grass, as the crowd progressively became eerily silent. Hughes's chest was compressed repeatedly. Medical personnel worked over him for several minutes trying to restart his heart. Hughes had suffered from advanced arteriosclerosis. His coronary arteries were 75% blocked. A blood clot had dislodged and became trapped in the large artery leading to his heart, cutting off blood flow. The damage was already done. Hughes was placed on a stretcher and wheeled off the field while resuscitation efforts continued. The game resumed and was completed shortly after. His teammates were informed of his death before leaving the stadium. Fans left the stadium unsure of what had happened. At 4:41 p.m., Chuck Hughes was pronounced dead at the hospital. He remains the only player in National Football League history to die during a game. The silent crowd, the frantic CPR, and the confusion on the field became a moment no one present would ever forget. Helmetless Impact kills star. On January 13, 1968, the Minnesota North Stars faced the Oakland Seals at the Met Center in Bloomington. Bill Masterton was a 29-year-old center for the North Stars, playing in his first National Hockey League season. That night, helmets were optional in the National Hockey League. Most players, including Masterton, chose not to wear one. Late in the first period, Masterton carried the puck at full speed toward the Oakland goal. As he slid a pass to his wing, one of the Seals' defenders' sticks tangled with Masterton's skates, causing him to lose his balance and pitch forward. He didn't see the other defender, who caught him with a clean check that knocked him backward. The check was legal. There was no penalty. But Masterton fell backward with no way to protect himself. His unhelmeted head struck the ice with tremendous force. Teammate Andre Boudreas would later recall the sound as resembling a baseball bat hitting a ball. Referee Wally Harris compared the hit to an explosion. Blood immediately began pouring from his nose and ears, clear signs of severe brain trauma. The impact of the hit caused him to lose consciousness before he even hit the ice. According to some accounts, he briefly came to and muttered, never again," before passing back out. Medical staff rushed onto the surface as Masterton lay motionless in a growing pool of blood. He did not respond to any stimulus. He received treatment on the ice and in the dressing room before being rushed to Fairview Southdale Hospital in nearby Edina, Minnesota. Doctors discovered massive swelling in his brain. The injury was too severe for the medical technology available at the time. Surgery was not a viable option. Masterton never regained consciousness. His parents, who had flown in from Winnipeg, his brother, his wife Carol, and his 2 children remained at his bedside as the swelling continued to worsen. Some 30 hours after his fall, his family made the decision to remove him from life support. The pressure inside his skull could not be relieved. His brain had sustained irreversible damage from the single impact with the ice. On January 15, 1968, Bill Masterton was pronounced dead. He remains the only player in National Hockey League history to die from injuries sustained during a game. His death sparked an immediate debate about helmet requirements, though the rule would not be implemented until the 1979-80 season, 11 years later. The sound of his head hitting the ice stayed with everyone who heard it. Concrete block skull crash. Fabio Casartelli died on July 18, 1995, in the Pyrenees Mountains of France. He was a 24-year-old professional cyclist competing in the Tour de France, one of the most demanding races in the world. Casartelli had won an Olympic gold medal in Barcelona in 1992 and was considered one of Italy's most promising riders. On that afternoon, he was descending the Col de Porte d'Aspet during the 15th stage of the race. The descent was steep and technical, with sharp switchback turns that required perfect control at high speed. Casartelli was traveling at nearly 55 miles per hour when he approached a particularly dangerous curve. Several riders crashed on this technically challenging descent. In a split second, Casartelli lost control. He fell and was thrown off the road. Along the roadside were concrete blocks. Casartelli's head struck the concrete blocks with tremendous force. He was not wearing a helmet. At the time, helmets were not mandatory in professional cycling, and many riders chose not to wear them because of weight and heat concerns. The impact was immediate and devastating. His skull fractured on contact with the concrete. Casartelli suffered severe head injuries and lost consciousness. Medical staff arrived within 10 seconds. While being flown to a local hospital in Tarbes by helicopter, Casartelli stopped breathing. After numerous resuscitation attempts and suffering 4 cardiac arrests, he was declared dead. Fabio Casartelli died without ever regaining consciousness. The back of his head and neck slamming into a concrete barrier with sharp edges had destroyed critical areas of his brain on impact. Whether a helmet would have saved his life became a subject of debate. The Tour's senior doctor, Gerard Porte, claimed that the fatal blow was to an area of Casartelli's head that would not have been covered by a helmet. However, Michel Disteldorf, the French doctor who examined Casartelli's body on behalf of the coroner, told the Sunday Times that the point of impact was on the top of the skull, an area that would have been protected by a helmet. Out of respect for Casartelli, Casertelli, the 16th stage was raced non-competitively the following day. The Motorola team led the peloton across the finish in a slow procession. 3 days later, Casertelli's teammate Lance Armstrong won a stage and dedicated the victory to him by pointing at the sky as he crossed the finish line. His death sparked renewed debate about the consequences of high-speed crashes without proper head protection. Smile then sudden death. On January 25, 2004, Portuguese club Benfica faced Vitória de Guimarães in a league match at Estádio de Afonso Henriques. The game was being broadcast live on television. Miklós Feher was a 24-year-old Hungarian striker playing for Benfica. He had been performing well that season and was considered a promising young talent. Benfica were leading 1-0. Feher had come on as a substitute and assisted Fernando Aguiar, another substitute, for the match's only goal. In injury time, during a throw-in for Guimarães, Feher got in the way to waste time and prevent the opponent from taking the throw. The referee spotted him wasting time and issued him a yellow card. Feher responded with a smile and ran his hand through his hair, seemingly unbothered by the decision. The crowd barely noticed. Seconds later, his expression changed. He bent forward, seemingly in discomfort. Then he collapsed backward onto the grass. His body hit the ground hard. Players from both teams immediately recognized something was terribly wrong. They rushed toward him, waving frantically for medical assistance. Team doctors sprinted onto the field with emergency equipment. They worked desperately to restart Feher's heart, performing chest compressions and cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Reports indicated that emergency medical personnel managed to revive Feher on the field using a defibrillator, though his heart stopped again. Players from both Benfica and Guimarães stood nearby. Some Benfica players knelt to pray while others were crying. The match was abandoned. However, in the stands, many spectators did not immediately understand what was happening. Benfica supporters continued to chant, and Vitória followers whistled, believing it was just another time-wasting maneuver. There were reports of delays in the ambulance's arrival, and there was no medical equipment immediately at hand when Feher first collapsed. Feher was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. However, his heart had stopped by the time he reached the hospital. Doctors fought to stabilize him, but his heart would not respond. He had suffered cardiac arrest caused by cardiac arrhythmia brought on by hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a disease of the heart muscle that often goes undetected in young athletes. At approximately 11:10 p.m., about 1 hour and 40 minutes after collapsing, Miklós Feher was pronounced dead. He was 24 years old. The image of him smiling just seconds before collapsing became one of the most haunting moments in soccer history. The contrast between that smile and what followed immediately after left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it. Rage on dirt track. On August 9, 2014, Canandaigua Motorsports Park in upstate New York hosted a sprint car race. Among the drivers was 20-year-old Kevin Ward Jr., who had been racing since age 4, starting with go-karts. He was in his 5th season with the Empire Super Sprint Series. Also racing that night was Tony Stewart, a 3-time NASCAR champion and one of the most recognizable names in American motorsports. During the race, there was contact between Ward's car and Stewart's vehicle on a turn. Ward lost control and spun into the wall. His car came to rest on the edge of the track. The caution flag came out, and cars slowed to a crawl, circling the track under caution as is standard procedure after a crash. Ward climbed out of his car. Instead of staying with his vehicle or moving to a safe area, Ward made a decision. He stepped onto the racing surface and began walking directly into the path of oncoming cars. He was dressed in a black racing suit and black helmet on a poorly lit dirt track at night. Sprint cars have poor visibility, making it difficult for drivers to see clearly. His intention was clear. He wanted to confront Stewart. He walked further into the lane, waving his arms and gesturing furiously as cars swerved around him. Stewart's car approached. Ward stepped even closer, pointing and shouting. Stewart's right rear tire struck Ward. Ward was sent sliding down the track. The race was immediately red flagged. Medical personnel rushed to where Ward lay on the dirt. Ward died of massive blunt trauma before paramedics could get him to a hospital. At 11:15 p.m., approximately 45 minutes after the incident, Kevin Ward Jr. was pronounced dead at the hospital. He was 24 years old. The incident sparked intense debate over whether Stewart had intentionally hit Ward or if the incident was an accident caused by poor visibility. Ward's dark clothing on a poorly lit track, and the handling characteristics of sprint cars, which use throttle as much as steering to maneuver. A grand jury investigation was conducted. Stewart was not charged criminally, with the Ontario County District Attorney stating that the grand jury found no evidence to charge Stewart with any crimes. A wrongful death lawsuit was filed by Ward's family in 2015, claiming Stewart acted with reckless and malicious intent. The lawsuit was later settled, though details remained confidential. The incident raised questions about safety protocols and driver behavior on racetracks. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.